I just wanted to start by saying how deeply sorry I am to all of those who lost loved ones, family members through the pandemic, and also all those who suffered in the various different ways throughout the pandemic and as a result of the actions were taken. I've thought a lot about I swear by the Gita
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Could you commence your evidence, please, Prime Minister, by giving us your full name?
Rishi Sunak.
Mr. Sunak, you have provided a witness statement for the purposes of this module 263374, which has been signed in the usual way with the Declaration of Truth. We're very grateful to you for the provision of that statement. Also, the further written material from members of your team, erstwhile team in then Her Majesty's Treasury, the statements of Mr. York Smith and Miss Joseph, all of which will, of course, be considered by the inquiry in due course. Thank you very much for providing the statement and for attending today. We understand that you wanted to say a few words by way of preface to the evidence that you'll be giving.
Thank you, Mr. Keith. Yes, thank you for having me here today. I just wanted to start by saying how deeply sorry I am to all of those who lost loved ones, family members through the pandemic, and also all those who suffered in the various different ways throughout the pandemic and as a result of the actions were taken. I've thought a lot about this over the past couple of years. It's important that we learn the lessons so that we can be better prepared in the future, and it is in that spirit and with enormous respect for all of those who are affected that I'm here today, and I look forward to giving evidence in a spirit of constructive candour to help the inquiry with its deliberations.
You don't now have access to any of the WhatsApps that you did send during the time of the crisis, do you?
No, I don't. I've changed my phone multiple times over the past few years, and as that has happened, the messages have not come across. As you said, I'm not a prolific user of WhatsApp in the first instance, primarily communication with my private office, and obviously anything that was of significance through those conversations or exchanges will have been recorded officially by my civil servants, as one would expect.
There was no doubt whatsoever, as far as you could tell, in the public's mind that as Chancellor, you were warning of the economic and fiscal consequences of lockdowns, that your position and HMT's position was that there is a trade-off. If you make a decision if you make a decision to lockdown, it's going to be enormously damaging. I mean, that was your raison d'etre, was it not?
I think that, maybe I wouldn't quite put it like that, but my, I'd say, almost constitutional responsibility as Chancellor of the Exchequer was to make sure that the Prime Minister had the economic, the analysis and the advice relating to the economic and fiscal implications or consequences of the decisions that he was considering. Of course, that was my job, and of course, that's what I did. I don't think it's controversial, and indeed, even I see now in the evidence has been submitted to the inquiry by many of the scientists from SAGE acknowledging that the benefit, I think the Chief Science Advisor at the time former Chief Science Advisor said that the benefits of imposing lockdowns had to be balanced by policymakers against the social, health, and other economic detriments that they would cause. I think Professor Edmonds said policymakers had to weigh up many other ethical, logistical, and economic constraints. And again, I could quote, actually the previous Chief Science Advisor also said there were costs in other domains of life, economic, people's well-being, education, all those needed to be analysed. So I don't think it's particularly controversial to say that, of course, there are lots of other impacts that come from decisions. My particular responsibility was to make sure that the economic ones were considered, or the Prime Minister had an opportunity to consider them.
Were you aware that his closest advisors had seemingly unanimously taken the view that there was a lack of efficiency the administration is described privately as brutal and useless, or criminally incompetent, or operationally chaotic. Was any of that known to you?
No, I don't think any of those comments were shared with me at the time. You made a point, though, Mr. Keith, is that debates raged. I don't think that is necessarily a bad thing.
No, indeed
I mean,
not.
these. It's right that there was vigorous debate because these were incredibly consequential decisions for tens of millions of people in all spheres, whether it was health, whether it was education, whether it was economic, whether it was social, whether it was the long-term impacts. These were incredibly big decisions, the likes of which no prime minister had taken in decades, if ever, like this. So the fact that there was debate and that people were passionate about it and they had different points of view is I think, A, unsurprising, and B, good, because it would be worse if we were having this conversation and all the commentary was, well, there was no debate about any of this whatsoever. It was all just signed off straightforward. Someone put a piece of paper, someone checked, and that was the last we heard of it. I think that would actually be far worse, quite frankly. It's good that there was debate about these things. Now, in terms of operational inefficiency, again, there is no perfect amount of deliberation versus speed. That's a trade-off that only the Prime Minister can make. Again, and it will be context dependent, it will be decision dependent, so it's hard to generalise what the right amount of deliberative time is. But as I've talked about the process, I don't think it's a problem that the Prime Minister gets advice from different people, mulls over it, tries out different arguments, assuming there is the time to do that before coming to a final decision. I think it's a good thing that there was debate, because debate was required when you're dealing with consequences of the sort that we were.
I'm asking you just generally, your impression as the Chancellor. Were you a Chancellor in an administration in which there was an absence of clear, consistent decision-making following full and robust debate? Or was it your impression that the decisions were being made properly, that there was a proper opportunity for everybody to have their say, and then the Prime Minister took decisions and stuck to them? Which is it?
So I can only answer for myself in terms of, did everyone have the ability they wanted to feed in, ultimately, because I'm not, I don't know the extent to which other cabinet ministers felt that they were sufficiently included or fed in or met the Prime Minister. It's a question for them. I've been consistently clear. For my part, I did have that ability from the beginning and throughout to feed in to decision making. And as I said, throughout, it's right that there was debate and discussion and debate. That's my general recollection. There weren't decisions that were made by fiat. There was good debate and discussion about decisions as we went. And unfortunately, we were just dealing with an unpredictable situation which people hadn't experienced before. And so did things have to iterate as we went along? Of course they did. And we'll get into that, I'm sure, when we address each of those individual decisions that you mentioned. Now, in each of those, of course, there would have been a period of iteration where we adjust the circumstances or facts as they changed. Don't think that is wrong, and I think it's hard to generalise. But what we should do is go into each of those things in detail, as I look forward to doing, and I'm sure we will over the course of today.
We will.